I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program today. Thank you so much for being with us. Again, my name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. We are so glad, again, that you are with us today, broadcasting remotely from Little Rock, Arkansas. Thanks to our hosts here in Little Rock at 101.1 The Answer. They have done a great job. They've been hosting us a couple of days a week, doing the broadcast out of their studios here. They're beautiful studios. I guess since January the 14th or the week of January 14th. So we really want to thank them. Not only do we appreciate them carrying this program to you on a daily basis, we also appreciate the opportunity to be able to cover the 92nd General Assembly. It looks like today is going to be the last day. The House and Senate are both scheduled to convene this morning at 10 a.m. They do have a few loose ends to tie up. One of those is going to be on sanctuary cities. We did an extensive amount of coverage on this bill, SB 411, which would prevent sanctuary cities. It would empower the state to cut off funding to municipalities if they decide to pass ordinances or policies that do not comply with federal immigration laws. Of course, we know that these sanctuary cities are all over the country. We know that they are really, in my opinion, I think eventually it's going to be something President Trump is going to have to deal with head on, very much like, SB 411, very much like, did I say something different? I thought I said SB 411. Anyway, it's going to be very much like Ronald Reagan when he had to deal with the air traffic controllers. I really do believe that. I think it's going to be very similar to that. But that's just speculation. Anyway, Arkansas yesterday, the Arkansas House Committee, the city, county, local committee decided to rehear the bill that failed the day before. They met upon adjournment yesterday, and the bill passed seemingly with no problem. The bill secured, by my count, 13 votes, but by the call of the chair, 14 votes. Speaker Matthew Shepard was in the committee, and he voted yes. So the Speaker of the House of the state of Arkansas voted yes for the bill as well. Now, so because the Speaker is on this committee, I guess I defeated at least part of my ignorance yesterday because I was so confused. The media reports said that when the bill failed 2 days ago, it needed 10 votes to get out, and it only got 9 votes. Well, the reason typically on a committee of 20 in the House, you need 11 votes to get something out, unless there is an exception, unless the Speaker of the House is on that committee. If the Speaker of the House is on that committee, because he's so busy and is not going to be in a lot of committee meetings, you only need 10. And that makes sense to me. So anyway, but it handily passed. And we want to thank all these Republicans that were there. I want to thank State Representative Carol Dalby for voting for this bill. I know there were some other legislators who were absent who were there. Matter of fact, State Representative Carol Dalby, she specifically addressed the fact that she did have to leave the room 2 days ago. And she said that she had taken some personal hits, and she wanted the record to be clear that when she left the room, she actually had business she had to attend to, and that she did not leave the room to avoid the vote, which was what, some people, first of all, you can't avoid that level of speculation, all right? It's good that State Representative Carol Dalby set the record straight, But because we have seen many legislators in the past, in order to avoid controversial votes, even this session it's happened, they've left the room. Well, let me just say this. Because legislators leave the room many times before a vote, most of the time it gets noticed if it's a controversial vote. People are obviously going to speculate because there are representatives pursuing thoughts and ideas or possibly avoiding those thoughts and ideas in our name, right? Having to go on record. But Carol Dobby yesterday, in front of the committee, in front of the people that were there, saying, listen, that's not why I had to leave. I had business to attend to. Matter of fact, we got the audio of it. We'll get to it here in just a minute. It passed overwhelmingly. This is a common sense measure. There was, opposition to it. But I'm really, really happy. I'm really proud of the Arkansas House, the Arkansas legislature, for passing this to the full House. Now, we'll see what happens. The governor is taking a wait-and-see approach. The governor had said publicly that he wanted to have the bill amended. From what I can tell, the bill did not get amended. The governor has said that this may cause racial profiling, which is exactly what the left says, by the way, that this bill will initiate racial profiling. I don't think it will. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. It's already passed the Senate. We have literally, in a matter of 4 hours, the House is going to convene, and they're going to take this piece of legislation up. And I would expect it to pass because it's obviously, when I read in the paper, and this is what everybody points out. Hang on, let me pull this up right now. So you have John Moritz, panel reviews bill opposing sanctuaries. 2 days after vote fell short, full House will get the measure. So they're going to hear it today. But so John Morris does write. Let's see that. Hang on one second. There's a point in here that points out, makes sure to point out that there's no Arkansas city or municipality that is currently engaging in any sort of. Here it is. Neither the bill sponsor nor the Arkansas Municipal League, which opposes SB 411, has identified any cities in the state that have such policies. All right. Now, I understand we're going to point that out, but I don't understand how people can listen to that point and then all of a sudden just act like we're supposed to ignore what's going on in other states. You know what I mean? Well, it hasn't happened here in Arkansas yet, so we don't need to worry about it. That is just such the normalcy bias. I don't even think it's normalcy bias. It's just not wanting. You disagree with the policy, so you come up with anything. These Democrats, Fred Love and others, coming up with anything. Well, is it happening here? No. David Whitaker, is it happening here? Well, no. State Representative Whitaker, it's not happening here. But there's this idea of you wanting to be prepared if it does happen. We want to prepare for it because we know, first of all, cities are more liberal. And we're talking about everybody's taxpayer dollars. Well, Paul, it's an issue of local control. If a city wants to do it, then you should leave them alone. Really? That's another argument the Democrats are making. The state of Arkansas should just allow the cities. By the way, the cities of Arkansas don't exist unless the state of Arkansas says they exist, because the state of Arkansas is a sovereign entity. Okay? Can you? Yeah, so we should just let the cities openly flout federal law if they want to. Not to mention the policy of unchecked illegal immigration that's been allowed by both parties for decades has hurt the economy of this country. Anyway, it's good to try to do something about this. And also there's talk that, Little Rock wants to be a sanctuary city if they're not already, a kind of a soft sanctuary city based on policies or ideas or some things that have been enacted. I'm just saying that's what people are saying. The telephone number this morning is 870-275-9799. If you would like to contribute to the conversation today, that's 870-275-9799. The bottom line is this. The fact that the committee reconsidered the sanctuary cities bill is for two reasons. And I think the number one reason is because of you, the listener, the people out there who are getting engaged, to the dismay. I mean, the State Representative Marcus Richmond yesterday, I think he seemed to not appreciate some of the social media interactions that were going on with people who were very, very upset. And what you have here is a combination, if I'm just going to be perfectly honest. You've got people who were hearing information on social media about the Sanctuary Cities bill not passing, and then you have that combined with a lack of understanding of the process, sometimes, and people just, understandably so, they want, if it's a policy they like, they want the policy enacted. You know what I mean? And so here's the thing. If the people hadn't gotten so outraged, here's the question. If the people hadn't gotten so outraged about this bill failing, would it have come back up? Maybe, but also maybe not. I think the people had a big thing to do with it, I mean, the fact is, State Representative Brant Smith was talking to his colleagues. So when Carol Dalby, according to her yesterday, when she legitimately had to leave the meeting for a reason, when there was a legislator, or two who were not there. By the way, I understand there was this. I understand there was a big lobbyist shindig 2 days ago about that time, and that's where some people were. That's pretty funny, right? I'm just saying it. The little bird told me that maybe one of the reasons some representatives weren't in the room is because they were eating crawfish at a lobbyist event. And so, because, Sanctuary Cities is a big deal, they decided to reschedule the vote. Also, I think because the people were out there holding them accountable. So at least that's my take on it. Anyway, I tell you what I want to do. I'm going to reset here, and then I'm going to make a little comparison. So we're gonna take a break, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We got a great hour for you. Coming up at 7:33, we're going to be talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. Will be on the line, so always great to have him on. But before we get to that, Mike Masterson, in his Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette column, recently had a piece entitled "Insight from Turmoil," and in his column, he talks about the story of Ed Monk and the story of Senator Stephanie Flowers. Now, you'll remember Senator Stephanie Flowers because, she was made national headlines on leftist websites for standing up for a Stand Your Ground bill, but she actually threatened State Representative Bob Ballinger and told Senator Alan Clark to, quote, go to hell. All of this is on video. If you haven't seen the video, it's an online sensation. You should go check it out. Ed Monk joins us on the phone. Ed, how are you this morning?
Yeah, I've got
fine.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good. Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP Parody.
I'd like to make
Need
a
your
point.
daily news fix?
Oh,
Don't
sorry.
forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I don't know. What is this? My show? All right. So check this out. I want to make a point here, okay, on the sanctuary cities deal, right? So the idea of illegal immigration is not popular with, I think, with the people of Arkansas, for example. And this is a slam dunk issue. And this is why people were so frustrated when it failed. Now, I know it didn't fail, but I just want to make this point so you understand. You can argue that Arkansas is a much more solidly conservative state, just in terms of voter will, than, say, a state like Georgia. Okay? And so you have this state, Georgia, where Brian Kemp, who's now the governor, beat Stacey Abrams. We remember all of this, right? And I want you to understand something. How did Brian Kemp run his campaign in the state of Georgia? He ran his campaign, Joe, cue this ad up. He ran his campaign by holding a shotgun, blowing up regulations, and reminding everybody he has a trusty truck just in case he needs to round up some illegals. Remember this? Listen to this.
I'm Brian Kemp. I'm so conservative, I blow up government spending. I own guns that no one's taking away. My chainsaw's ready to rip up some regulations. I got a big truck, just in case I need to round up criminal illegals and take them home myself. Yep, I just said that. I'm Brian Kemp. If you want a politically incorrect conservative, that's me.
So okay. Again, Brian Kemp. Now he won. Now he barely won, but that's just because the media and everything else. But I just want you to understand, Atlanta, that's one of the largest urban areas in the country. And that's how Brian Kemp chose to run his campaign, with ads like that. And yeah, there's certainly some tongue in cheek there. No, I'm not going to dispute that. But this is why, I mean, if you compare the will of the voters of Georgia to what the vast majority of people of Arkansas think about illegal immigration, this is why you got such a visceral reaction from the people when the bill failed. And everybody, all of us who are not a part of the Marble Palace system, who don't necessarily know how everything works, everybody was scrambling to figure out why in the world this would happen in Republican-led Arkansas. And this is why, and I said this yesterday, I want everybody to hear this again. There were some representatives who got called out 2 days ago who didn't even vote. Or I'm sorry, who weren't even on the committee. Specifically, Sarah Capp. I specifically mentioned State Representative Capp yesterday on the program just to let you know the procedure. So Sarah Capp is, she was sitting on the committee, but she's not on the committee. You know what I mean? She was just sitting there because that's what legislators do. Anyway. And if you don't know that, then you might assume, okay, well, she's on the committee and then everything else. So when she got up and left, it was no big deal. Let's go to yesterday afternoon. Let's go to State Representative Harrell Dalby. She did get up and leave. She was on the committee 2 days ago. If you're just joining us, the Sanctuary Cities bill did pass with 14 votes yesterday, according to the count of the chair. 14 yes votes. It will go to the House floor this morning at 10 a.m. And State Representative Harrell Dalby, who took some personal criticism because she left the meeting early 2 days ago, had this to say. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had made it clear I felt like yesterday that I was for this bill. I had some questions about some of the procedures, and Representative Smith and I visited about that, about trying to fix the procedures so that the bill will stand any court challenge, and that I was supportive of the bill, was supportive of it yesterday, though I have taken some personal hits today because I was called out of this meeting to take care of some other business that I was responsible for and didn't get back here in time. And I want the record to be very clear that I did not leave this meeting to avoid a vote yesterday, and Representative Smith understands that, and I think all my colleagues understand that. But I wanted that to be very clear that that's not the way I operate, and I wanted that on record. And I had every intention yesterday of voting for this bill, though I recognize there's some issues that we're going to work on and get it fixed as to the procedure part of it, and I have every intention of voting for it today. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Richmond, you're recognized.
All right, let's keep going. State Representative Marcus Richmond, he had some things to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly kind of echo the same sentiments on this thing. That coming here and voting for such a bill or voting against such a bill is not an easy task for anybody here. It's a difficult thing. We put a lot of thought into it. And frankly, when those outside use the language, use and discuss and talk about my colleagues, it doesn't matter which side of the issue that they're on, it makes me even more reluctant to do something that would support such a cause that they may be actually wanting me to support. It's counterproductive. Hate, all the things that divide us. There's no place for it here. We have to come together and we have to try, even though we have different opinions and different ideas of what is right, we have to try to find that common ground. And when we are attacked, and you know, we're politicians, there's, you know, even though each and every one of us would like to deny that, we're politicians, we understand that that's going to happen. But when you're attacked and vilified and everything, you're not pushing your particular idea down the road. You're going backwards. As far as this bill, I think that the rule of law in this country, and I have been during my Marine Corps career to over 70 different nations, I have seen the lack of rule of law. I have seen the impact that it has. It is the one thing that every citizen of this nation can count on, is that there are rules and that they do apply to us. And when we start ignoring this rule or picking that rule or choosing that rule that we're going to obey, then that's a slippery slope that we will never, ever remove ourselves from. And we will end up like so many of the other countries that people are fleeing from to come here. It's amazing that we don't have people fleeing from the United States to go somewhere else. So that tells me we have something here worthwhile, and we should enforce our laws, and that's why I'm voting for this bill.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion?
All right, that's State Representative Marcus Richmond. Now, a couple of things there. He spoke to the bill, saying, you know, the rule of law is very important. Exactly, and that's why everybody was so upset. That's why everybody was so upset when the bill fell 2 days ago. Then he says, you know, he's standing up for his colleagues there, and you know he knows politicians are going to take the heat and everything else. But people are human, and so that part where he said, you know, even if I agree with something, you know, if the people, the way they go about it, it does make me less likely to do it if they're doing, you know, using techniques I disagree with. You know what? That's really neither here nor there. The bottom line is this, okay? The bottom line is this. The people being engaged, they may not, you know, the people being engaged are a big reason as to why this bill was passed out of that committee yesterday. Now, there may be some politicians that disagree with that, but I think it's obvious. The people being engaged and attempting to say, hey, you are going to pass this, I think it's a big reason why the House re-ran in committee, or State Representative Smith did. State Representative Brand Smith and Gary Stubblefield, they knew that this bill, that the people of Arkansas were on their side. And that's why they ran it again. And I think honestly, I think the outrage of it failing, however it failed, for whatever reason it failed, is just a sign that the people can move the ball forward. And by the way, the governor of Arkansas is still, at least according to the reports, they're just kind of wait and seeing. They wanted an amendment. They didn't get an amendment. So we'll wait and see what happens on the floor. Again, Speaker Matthew Shepard on the record voted for this bill. And so that's something to take note of. We're up against a hard break. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. I really appreciate it. Now, I just want you to tell the people your story as if, they have no idea what this story is about. If you'll just start from the beginning.
Yeah, well, I moved back here to Arkansas, where I grew up, in 2010 after retiring from the military. And then in 2013, I requested to meet with my state senator, Stephanie Flowers, and she granted it, invited me up. I met her in the Capitol, about a 15-minute, very cordial, disagreeing, but cordial meeting. And at her request, it was observed by a Capitol police officer who wrote a report about it, and he states that it was non-threatening, that I left without incident. So, cordial meeting in 2013, I had absolutely no contact with her for 4 years. 4 years later, February 2017, I write her a very polite email because the legislature is again in session, and I say, at your convenience, as your constituent, I would like to meet with you again. Well, she never answers that, but she prints it out and she handwrites on it. This makes me this is intimidating and harassing. That very polite email, and she gives it to a sergeant of arms. Now, the sergeant of arms and the senator are not law enforcement; they're basically ushers and errand runners. They're not cops. And she hands it to a sergeant of arms to take this to Capitol Police, get me a photo of this Ed Monk. And I don't want him contacting me in any way at the Capitol. So she's telling some staffer, I don't want the constituent contacting me anymore in any way, which, of course, he has no way of doing, at least legally. So according to 4 state police memos that I got from the Freedom of Information Act, that's 2 days after I sent the email, that Senate Sergeant of Arms comes up to 3 state troopers who are just working security in the Capitol and hands them my photo that he got through ACIC, which is a crime.
No, can I stop you right there? So yeah. If she instructed to go to the Capitol Police, and then apparently, I'm just deducting that they were like, well, what do you want us to do? And so instead he goes to state troopers, right?
Well, yes. According to the chief of the Capitol Police, Chief Hedden, he said, I looked at that email, and I determined I could take no action. And he told me in a recorded phone call it was written as professional as if I had written it.
Yeah, and that's because Chief Hedden is a great guy, for the record. Okay, so go ahead.
He talked to, according to this Senate Sergeant of Arms in his deposition in my lawsuit, a captain in the Capitol Police then ran me an ACIC and gave the Sergeant of Arms a photo of me, which is a crime. And so the Sergeant of Arms, according to 4 state police memos, approached 3 troopers in the Capitol, handed them my photo, and said, this is Edward Monk, a police officer in Arkansas. He was in the Capitol this morning, in the senator's office this morning, confronted the senator in an irate manner that made her feel threatened and had to be forcibly removed from the Capitol by...
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, good morning to everybody out there. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being with us. If you're just joining us, there's very, very good news on the sanctuary cities front. Something that should be a low-hanging fruit. Apparently, it is. If you vote on it twice in 3 days. So, the Sanctuary Cities bill was reheard in committee yesterday and passed with 14 votes. Only needed 10 to get out. And it's going to be heard on the floor this morning at 10 a.m. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very good thing. And that has a lot to do with the fact that the citizens of this state, when they heard, they called, they texted, they emailed, and the legislators listened. And they made sure that they had the votes in that room for you. And I'm really, really excited. And I think, somebody said on the Facebook page that they were shocked, that the politicians were kind of shocked by the fact that the citizens were so engaged on this particular subject. But, hey, I mean, there's a reason President Donald Trump's in the White House right now, too. So it means a lot. Folks, the Patriots of Act 746, they're on a mission to educate the citizens of Arkansas about your gun rights. Specifically, Act 746 decriminalized the possession of a weapon. So you here in the state of Arkansas don't need a permit from the state to carry a weapon openly or concealed. And it's always great. And we've had him on because of his legislative prowess the last several weeks. We've got Tim Loggins back with us at least one more time because the session's about to be over. Tim, how are you?
Good morning, Paul. I'm doing great. And thank goodness the session is almost over. I'm tired.
Man, I'm also tired. I think everybody is. Legislators, reporters, everybody's tired. Staff. I was talking to some people, yesterday about that as well. So, Tim, let me ask you this. First of all, let me ask you this. I know this is unrelated to the Patriots VAC 746, but were you following this sanctuary cities bill that would defund cities if they adopt sanctuary policies?
I was following it very closely. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're pleased with the fact that this can now go into the House floor?
I am tickled to death, Paul, and you say it's not related to Patriots, but, we're 18,000 strong. It's a grassroots movement of just common folks. And a lot of patriots were the people reaching out to these legislators saying, hey, guys, we demand a vote on this. So, it might not be a patriot issue, a gun issue, but this grassroots movement that has started since last session is having implications outside of 2A issues. So I don't think we can discount that or dismiss it.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. All right, so to kind of recap, Tim Loggins, we've talked about the successes that that I think the people have had, thanks to your efforts and thanks to legislators' efforts. We got 2 resolutions, one out of the House, one out of the Senate, that clarify gun rights, clarify that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. That's a big deal that those 2 resolutions got passed. Now, aside from that, there were other efforts, stand your ground laws and a few other things that I don't ever actually think came to fruition. What can you tell us about those?
Well, Paul, I want to point out a couple of things. The resolution was a big deal for Arkansas, for legislators to point out, hey, we are a constitutional carry state. That's the law of the land. But a bigger picture of this session is, compare this to last session. This time last session, we had enhanced carry rammed down our throat. We were basically victims of the legislature this time 2 years ago. And we had bad legislation being passed. We weren't being talked to. We didn't have a seat at the table as constituents. Flash, forward to this session, and every single piece of bad legislation was defeated in committee. The NRA that sold us out on enhanced carry last time, they didn't back a single piece of legislation that was successful this session. The same old players that keep writing bad gun laws, they didn't get a piece of legislation passed. So, our successes might not seem real glaring, but I would argue that we're in a much stronger and better position right now than we were 2 years ago. And I'm thankful for Patriots for that.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. Remind people enhanced carry. I mean, if you want to give us a breakdown of really everything that had happened, leading up to that, because you're right, that was something that the NRA was involved in, and some other legislators. Originally the bill really wasn't. It was maybe kind of benign. It might have. It was originally, it was just about professors carrying on campus if they already had a permission slip from the government, but then it turned into something much worse.
Well, enhanced carry is unconstitutional, Paul, and Senator Garner tried to do a fix of enhanced carry this time, and his constituents spoke loudly and said, no, this can't be fixed. It's a bad law, and I would anticipate it just going away eventually. We had some other bad laws. We eventually supported stand your ground. But then when we looked at the amended version by Senator Ballinger, page 3, line 10 said, is not an unlawful possession of a weapon used to employ the deadly force. Well, what that meant was that if I'm driving down the road and I see a terrorist attacking people, in a gun-free zone, if I shot the terrorist, I couldn't use self-defense or lethal force as a defense. So that was a bad piece of legislation, and thankfully that got put in the interim study. And there were several pieces like that you got legislators trying to write gun laws without thinking about the unintended consequences of some of the language. And those were all struck down this session. So far so good anyway.
Do you think that's because, people don't realize that when they go to write a gun law in this state, because there's not an explicit law that has been passed that says this is an act, to make Arkansas a constitutional carry. There was never a bill that was passed into law that ever said that. What happened was Denny Altis back in 2013 made changes to the existing law, very small ones, corrective ones, that decriminalized the possession of a firearm or a weapon, and increased the burden of proof on the prosecution. And so because of that, any gun law that you pass, you have to make sure that it is not going to weaken the decriminalization status of possession of a weapon now. Is that right?
Paul, I think it's deeper than that. I think you have a dichotomy here in Arkansas where you have some people that fully support constitutional carry, that no permit is required. That's the status of the law currently. And you have some folks that really don't support that concept or that idea. They don't support freedom. So when they go to start writing this legislation, they do it from their viewpoint, which is, is a privilege, not a right. And they unintentionally or intentionally, I don't know, they put wording in there that, number one, threatens constitutional carry, number two, threatens freedom. And, these folks that are continuing to try to write this gun legislation, they need to start reaching out to some of the folks, this grassroots movement, to make sure that we're truly advancing freedom and our right to keep and bear arms.
I mean, I would assume that. Matter of fact, I would assume that if you're going to attempt to do something, write some legislation when it comes to guns, I would assume, Tim, that the Patriots VEC 746 would, that they would want your opinion, because, y'all actually follow this stuff pretty much full time, not just 3 months every 2 years.
This is what we do. This is why this group was formed. That's why we exist, to educate the public, to advance gun rights. And, on the Stand Your Ground bill, we've had legislators reaching out to us since it's been put in interim study that say, hey, how can we do this right? So I don't think this Stand Your Ground is going away. I just think we put it in study. Legislators in their wisdom want to get it right. And I would anticipate it in the gun-free zones and some other legislation next session. But, I'm tired of this concept. Let's pass a bad bill that we can fix later. How about we just pass a good one to start with?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And again, I know we keep, you keep mentioning enhance. That was a template of 2 years ago that we never want to repeat here again, because if you'll remember, folks, you had a bill that was going to do one thing, but then the governor, if you'll remember, he wasn't comfortable with it, and so they took that bill and amended it, and then eventually you get this, this bill that was created not based on the effectiveness of a well thought out policy, but it was more political considerations to make sure, nobody could point and say that, I'm not for the Second Amendment. And that's and if you write a bill like that, then, you're not, well, we see the results. And so it's good so you're saying, Tim Loggins, you're saying this session for now, it doesn't appear that template was repeated.
So far, no. I know we still have a full day left, so I'm not going to discount any possibility. But as of right now, Paul, we haven't had any bad gun legislation at this point that got out of committee. Mm-hmm. That's important for folks. One of the most important things that a legislator does is not pass legislation, but defeat bad legislation. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they want to do something, and a lot of times that something is bad. Well, this time they've resisted that temptation when it comes to gun rights and gun laws. Mm. We haven't done anything bad. Let's continue holding what we got. Let's continue moving forward. And I see a template moving forward to where we can continue expanding gun rights for our county. That's what our group stands for.
We're talking with Tim Loggins from the Patriots VEC 746. Now that those two resolutions did pass the Senate, clarifying gun rights, agreeing with the Taft versus Arkansas decision, we've talked about this before, but I just want to remind everybody, Leslie Rutledge, the Attorney General, in her last opinion, she urged the legislature to clarify 746 Now, they didn't clarify it with any additional statute, but they did with these two resolutions, essentially saying, well, there is no new statute needed. That's got to, that's got to do something. That is a direct answer, I think, to Leslie Rutledge's question.
Paul, I want to be clear to the listeners. Everyone that talks about we need a law that clarifies what we currently have, I invite them to look at other constitutional carry states. Arkansas has the absolute best constitutional carry statutes on the books. No permits required. You don't need a permit to carry concealed or unconcealed. And we don't need another law saying that because what we do says it already. So look at Oklahoma. I'm grateful they passed constitutional carry, but there's a lot of provisions in the law that we're not subject to here in Arkansas. We have true constitutional carry in Arkansas, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, and legislative intent is now clear. I'm seeing that posted. Somebody's posting that right now, and so that's good. So, Tim, the legislative session is going to end today sometime. What is the Patriots VAC 746? What do you guys have planned in the future?
Well, I know in Northeast Arkansas, Paul, we've got a meet and greet and clear grilled at Black Iron Sheep Range on the 27th. We're having meetings every weekend all across the state. We're continuing to engage and reach out with legislators and citizens about the law and their rights. We're continuing to move that football forward. You know what? There's some big questions that we need to face between now and next legislative session. We're already talking about it with some of the legislators. Where should I not be allowed to carry a weapon? That should be a very limited number of places. You've attended our meetings, and you know our discussion on that and our thought process. We need to address these issues, and I think we will moving forward. I think we'll continue to move that ball forward in a good, measured way, and Patriots is making a difference.
Yeah, well, they sure are. And Tim Loggins, it's always great having you on, and I appreciate you coming to talk to us one more time this morning.
Thank you, Paul, for having me and for letting me have this platform in order to spread the word.
Absolutely, Tim. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
All right,
Thanks,
stay
buddy.
safe. Folks, it's Tim Loggins with the Patriots VAC 746. You can check them out, facebook.com, search for Patriots VAC 746, and become a part of the online sensation today. I tell you what, it is interesting, that you had, apparently, if you talk to Tim there, the impression that I'm left with is that you had a very defensive mentality for the most part, which is something we talked about at the beginning of the session, before the session. Now, we talked about the fact that there may be an effort to undermine 746 and the decriminalization of weapons, carrying a weapon in the state of Arkansas. And you got to be very careful about that. Specifically because of what happened 2 years ago, when you had a bill that was okay, wasn't great, but it really didn't do anything bad, and then it turned into something that was just ridiculous and really made the concealed handgun industry worse off, honestly, the enhanced carry. And so knowing that is possible, it sounds to me like, the grassroots activists just did everything they could to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't repeat itself again. And that's a positive thing. I said from the beginning, if we got out of the session without any changes to 746, that is a huge victory. This idea of constitutional carry, permitless carry, and it looks like we are going to. Don't want to speak too soon. We still have a few hours left of session, and but then you combine that with the two resolutions that passed the House and Senate that just clarified what the law already is. That's a big deal. That's a very, very big deal. Very big victory there. Folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to reset here. When we come back at 7:05, we're going to talk a little bit about the Bible. There's a legislative effort, and it's a done deal, but there was interesting debate. There's a legislative effort for school districts, public schools, to offer the Bible as an elective course. So a study of the Bible is an elective course. And Judge Wendell Griffin, now you know who Judge Wendell Griffin is, right? He's the guy who a lot of people thought he was going to be impeached. He wasn't able to hear death penalty cases for a while because he participated in an anti-death penalty rally where he went and did some sort of a naturalist tableau theater where he posed on a gurney as a dead guy. That's Judge Wendell Griffin. And he surprised everybody yesterday, and he showed up at the House Education Committee to testify against this bill that would allow students to study the Bible as an elective at their schools. And his testimony, in my opinion, was honestly comical to me. I've watched it, and it's comical because he just comes across as just a little, I don't know, is pretentious the right word? And I mean, respectful but pretentious. Like, he's very clear. This is against the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and separation of church and state. It's been in our country since 1789. Anyway, we're gonna bring that audio and video to you coming up at 7:05. Also, coming up at 7:30, I want to introduce you to the guy who is the author of the Mueller report. Well, sort of. You'd think, well, Robert Mueller, right? No, his name is Kevin Pryslak, and he's the author of a book entitled The Mueller Report, The Complete and Final Findings Against President Donald Trump. It's, what is it, a 900-page book, and it's mostly blank pages. No, it's 1,064 words. 1,064 words. And it's mostly just full of blank pages. Anyway, it's gonna be a funny interview. I'm excited to talk to Kevin. Coming up at 7:33. All right, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna reset, and don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799.
The Capitol Police because of his behavior toward the senator.
And this is what the sergeant of arms told the state trooper again?
According to 4 state police memos and phone calls to state police, yes.
Wow. And you weren't even at the Capitol. You were never forcibly removed, right?
I've never been forcibly removed anywhere. No, I wasn't even in Little Rock for several days before this. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an exaggeration. This was a completely fabricated lie. And so the trooper in charge of that three-man detail immediately, without confirming it or verifying it, and there's a reason for that, calls his supervisor at the headquarters, State Police headquarters, Captain Aramia, and says, "Hey, we got this cop out of control over here, threatening senators. He's been kicked out. We're looking for him. He may try to return."
And you're a policeman. You're law enforcement, right, Ed?
I'm a part-time police officer in Whitehall. Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
And then a captain in the state police calls my boss, my city police chief, and reports this as fact. Your officer is up here, out of control, threatening a senator. Has been kicked out.
Accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst. How are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, "Loophole." Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us today. This is in the first hour. My apologies for the extended break, but I spilt coffee all over myself because confession, good for the soul, I guess, bad for the reputation. But yeah, sorry, I spilled coffee all over myself. And anyway, just that's why I had some cleanup I had to do. Folks, I want to remind everybody out there that if you have not yet gone to our YouTube page, please do. It's Conduit News, and you can please subscribe and click the little bell to receive notifications. And if you want to support the program monetarily, then you can do that. You can get an extra video from me a week if you just go to patreon.com/CNR, and you'll get the extra video a week for $5 a month. So we'd encourage you guys to do that. That would certainly help us out in a whole lot of ways. Now, in other news, we're about to have to go to break here, but I'll tell you next hour how Governor Hutchinson signed the internet sales tax and corporate rate cut. That's the headline from Michael Wickline. That is a much better headline than the stuff I saw on Twitter from KATV saying Governor signs corporate tax reform. Really? There's no mention of the internet sales tax increase. Back in a minute.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
And of course, that results in a phone call to me. So as I go back, And then, of course, immediately, within hours, they know it's an absolute lie. But they don't call my boss immediately and tell him, we screwed up, it's an absolute lie. And when I start calling up through the state police, running the rabbit back down the hole, finding out where did you get this lie you reported to my boss, they won't cooperate. And it took me a very long time to understand why. They were obviously used for political purposes to try to intimidate a constituent. Why they wouldn't cooperate until I found out that the sergeant of arms, who they say did it, they say, but now they won't publicly admit, is a retired state trooper. That's when the dots connected, and I understood why they were circling the wagons and conspiring. I had a 40-minute office meeting with the deputy director of the state police about this, and it ended with him, promising me and assuring me he would dig into this. The state police would find out why it happened, who initiated it, and he would get back with me. And he's never contacted me after that meeting. And I have a letter from the state police director, Colonel Bill Bryant. It says, when I asked him to help me find out who gave his troopers this false report, because they wouldn't officially tell me, he said, well, my troopers in the Capitol, they did not know. They have no way of knowing because they do not know the personnel of the Sergeant of Arms staff over there. Well, now, that's clearly a false statement, because in his deposition, this Sergeant of Arms, Al Vernon Rogers, who's a retired state trooper, said under oath in his deposition he knows all three of those troopers by sight and name, and he was the drill instructor for two of those troopers in State Police Troop School. Plus, I have a recorded phone call with one of those three troopers where he names Al Vernon Rogers as the person who gave him the false allegations about me in the Capitol, and I have a memo by a captain in the state police where he says that corporal told him that Sergeant of Arms was involved.
We're talking with Ed Monk, and you can obviously understand why I wanted to have him on the program, folks, because this is an injustice. This is really wild that this would happen to a private citizen by our own government. So, Ed, do we actually know? It sounds to me like whoever made up the story that you were at the Capitol when you were not, that you were irate when you were not, that you were forcibly removed when you were not, that probably came from one person, and now everyone's circling the wagons. Do we actually know who it was that decided to fabricate this story?
Not yet. We don't have proof because we've only deposed one person in the lawsuit that I filed, and that one person, Al Vernon Rogers, the defendant, the Sergeant of Arms, who the state trooper told me gave him the false information. He claims absolutely no knowledge of it at all. Not only that he didn't say it, he wasn't around it. He says, I never ever heard anybody say you were there that day, that you got kicked out, you were already. I've never heard that. But in a recorded phone call, the trooper says that Al Vernon Rogers gave him the information, and he also told that to a captain who typed a memo about it. So he's denying it, but we're hoping to get other depositions. We're hoping to depose those three troopers, among other things, because no one's ever gotten the three troopers together and told me what they said. And then that's just it. That's what I couldn't understand, why the state police, after giving this horribly, defaming, slanderous, damaging report to my boss, was giving no effort to try to tell me who gave them the lie, and in fact were resisting by lying.
Interesting. So,
and then I had a meeting with Ann Cornwell, the director of the Senate, and gave her these memos. This isn't me alleging this. Here are state police memos describing how they were given this false report. And she said she would look into it. And then she had a meeting with Al Vernon Rogers, and she only had one Sergeant of Arms in the meeting, and it was Al Vernon Rogers, the defendant, and Corporal Lewis, the trooper, one of the three troopers who received the false information from Rogers and passed it up the chain, the captain that he called at the headquarters, and Captain Bryce of the Capitol Police, who Rogers said gave him my photo. She had a meeting with all those first-hand people who were there that knew firsthand what happened. And when I talked to her on May 4th after this meeting, she said they did not come up with who made the false allegation, but she sent me a letter that said all protocol was followed and there was no intent to give any false information.
Gosh.
All protocol was followed, is what the letter said.
And so you say the Sergeant of Arms also was a state trooper at one point?
Yes, he was not only, he had retired recently from the state police, but he was on the TV news every morning, telling you where the speed traps were. He was the face of the state police. He was on the TV news in the morning. He was a recruiter.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Hour number 2 here, this looks like it's going to be the last day of the General Assembly, the 92nd General Assembly. Well, technically, it's not the last day, but it looks like they're going to recess here for a few weeks. They're going to come back towards the end of this month, and I believe was that April 24th. Is that what I heard? April 24th. And that's when they will sine die. But they're going to take a pretty big break here. No, is it April or May? Anyway, I can't remember if it's April or May 24th. Anyway, the bottom line is this: they're not going to be passing any or hearing any more bills after today if everything goes according to plan, as long as somebody somewhere in the next couple of weeks doesn't find like a big mistake or an error or something like that, and then they can, reconvene and try to fix it before. Because see, what people don't understand is their constitutional power will be gone until next year during the fiscal session, or a year after that during the 93rd General Assembly. So it's kind of a big day, a lot of anticipation. If you're just joining us, the biggest thing that will probably happen today is on the House side in terms of the sanctuary city bill that would ban sanctuary cities in Arkansas, or at least if a city decides to adopt a sanctuary city policy that is contrary to federal immigration law, meaning they refuse to cooperate with federal authorities when it comes to illegal immigrants in this country, then the state could then defund the money they send to that city. So it's certainly an incentive to make sure you follow federal immigration law. I don't know what can I tell you. That bill was reheard after it failed 2 days ago. It passed yesterday afternoon with 14 votes out of the committee and will be heard this morning on the House floor at 10 a.m. It's already been through the Senate side. So this would kind of be the last chance for this bill. If it passes, then good. It's going to go to the governor's desk. We'll see what he does with it. It may be one of these things where he allows it to become law without his signature, because I don't know if he supports it because he's afraid it would allow racial profiling, even though the bill, there's a provision in there designed to, say that you can't racially profile. Anyway, so that's what's going on today, and I can just tell everybody's ready to get out of here. I will also tell you, interesting thing happened yesterday. They've got this bill that was only back before the House Education Committee to confer on an amendment. I mean, it's already passed the House. It passed the Senate. It was amended on the Senate end. It goes back before the House Committee yesterday to just be conferred, right? It was a bill that allows for the Bible to be taught as a class, an elective class in public schools, right? Now, I've heard from people that say this, and I understand they don't support this bill, not because they're not Christians, but because they don't want the public school. They don't think the public schools can teach anything, much less the Bible accurately. Well, I understand that. I don't necessarily know if the Bible course that will be taught as an elective, I don't think that's necessarily going to be taught from a theological perspective. It's much more of a literary perspective, a historical perspective, and that sort of thing. But I understand people are like, I want to teach I want my church to teach the Bible I want to teach the Bible to my kids. I don't want the government to teach. Well, first of all, it's an elective, so they don't have to. Number one. Number two, there are plenty of high school teachers out there right now who go to biblical churches, I'm sure they would love to teach the elective class on the Bible. Now, there are also teachers out there that might want to teach it and are hostile towards the Bible. But here's my belief as a Christian. I believe that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, and I believe that it being read, just the fact that it will be read, that it's not going to return void. And I would say that there will possibly be kids that would have never read the Bible otherwise that might read the Bible and might get some historical appreciation, and who knows, maybe some supernatural appreciation just by opening the book and reading it. What do you guys think? So from that standpoint, I think it's a great idea. From a historical standpoint, you can justify it all day long, but that's not the way Judge Wendell Griffin felt about it. So yesterday, it's before the Committee on Education as just to confer on an amendment. It was a simple amendment that said that the Department of Education would find some curriculum to win. If a school, it's voluntary. So if a school voluntarily wants to offer this as an elective, the Department of Education will have the curriculum, for them or some guidance of some kind. So out of the blue, Judge Wendell Griffin, yes, Judge Wendell Griffin, that Wendell Griffin who participated in an anti-death death penalty protest and then was barred from hearing death penalty cases. It was this weird, it was like a naturalism theater where he, posed like a dead guy on a gurney. And that's Wendell Griffin. Wendell Griffin shows up, him and Trent Gardner. Did you know that him and Trent Gardner are secretly best friends? No, that's just a joke. So Wendell Griffin goes to the end of the table to speak against this piece of legislation by State Representative Joe Cloud. And this is what Wendell Griffin said. Listen to this.
The committee, my name is Wendell Griffin. I appear this morning as pastor of New Millennium Church, a congregation that was organized in 2009 in Little Rock, Arkansas. I've been an ordained minister of the gospel of Jesus since 1988. I am here to speak against this bill because it infringes on something that has existed in our democracy since 1791. The First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution prohibits the state from establishing a religion. Any religion. Mine, yours, or nobody's. And this bill has language that states that the Department of Education shall, by 2019-2020 school year, identify, develop, and approve a Bible course for high school credit. That Bible course is the sacred book of the religion known as the religion of Jesus. Christians.
The religion of Jesus? Never heard it.
The Hebrew Bible, the Torah, is the sacred book of the people known as Jews. The Department of Education has no mandate to develop or identify a course to teach the Quran, a book of Hindu texts.
Well, it could. You just got to find yourself a representative to run a bill to make it available.
A Wiccan text, or any other religion. Quite frankly, this bill mandates the Arkansas Department of Education to identify, develop, and approve a course for one religion only. I tell you that it violates my faith that requires me to respect the dignity of all faiths. But I also tell you, this is a friendly suggestion, that you're buying a constitutional objection that you're going to lose. This bill as written is on its face unconstitutional. In my past life, I taught constitutional law. If I had a law student who wrote a law paper and said that this bill was constitutional, that law student would flunk that question. I'll take your questions.
Judge Wendell Griffin, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking at the text of the bill, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but item E there on page 2, line 33 to 34 that you quoted, you left off the end of it, where it says the department shall identify, develop, and approve a Bible course for high school credit that meets the requirements of subsections A, B, and C. So if you look back at subsections A, B, and C, A actually states the State Board of Education shall allow for an elective academic study of the Bible course or courses that are consistent of a non-sectarian, non-religious academic study of the Bible and its influence on literature, art, music, culture, and politics. If you go down to subsection B, it shall offer, again, an elective course, elects to offer academic study of the Bible course, shall implement the course in accordance with the Arkansas Constitution and the United States Constitution. And then in subsection C, C1 specifically, it says, it shall be taught in an objective and non-devotional manner with no attempt to be made to indoctrinate students as to either the truth or falsity of the biblical materials or texts from other religious or cultural traditions. So I guess my question for you is, if the department has to develop the course in light of subsections A, B, and C, it gives specific guidelines on what sort of course can and shall be adopted. Do you have any comments on that?
I thank you, Representative Dodson, for asking that question. I was hoping it would be coming to me. The First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States has several clauses, one of which is called the Establishment Clause. The language of the Establishment Clause is the language that directly is violated by this bill. You cannot, let's say again, you cannot pass this bill without it being declared unconstitutional as a violation of the Establishment Clause, because the Establishment Clause prohibits the state from establishing any religion. This bill, by reference to the United States Constitution...
All right, stop for a second.
If you allow me to say so,
I'm sorry. This I've got to jump in here. Again, that's Judge Wendell Griffin. And, you know, the Establishment Clause and how it has been really just bastardized by the courts is kind of one of my biggest pet peeves. Oh, by the way, if you back up, when Wendell Griffin said, you know, the religion of, you can't establish the religion of, Christianity or the religion of nobody. What is the religion of nobody? When he said that, I don't know if you picked that up. He said, you can't establish the religion of nobody. What is that, an atheist? Because we certainly can establish the religion of nobody. It's called atheism. And somehow they operate on this double standard that atheism is not in itself a worldview that can oppress other people, right? It's like, well, your Christianity in public life, that's the establishment of a religion, and you're forcing me. No one's forcing you to do anything. This is an elective course. But then we can have atheism, which forces everybody to keep God on a shelf in their basement. But that's not a worldview, and that doesn't force anybody to do. You know, we have a secular society that says you can't have God in public life, and that somehow is not considered a worldview because, well, it's not a religion. But it actually is a religion. It's a religion and a worship of yourself as God. How is that not considered a worldview? Judge Wendell Griffin is a product of the legal judicial establishment that has reinterpreted a document that was supposed to ensure our freedom and prevent the government from doing exactly what it's done, which is oppress the people and our liberties. Judge Wendell Griffin saying that them establishing a Bible class, if you want to take it as an elective, and you're not looking at it from a sectarian view, you're looking at how the Bible has influenced politics and social, sociology and literature and everything else. And it's not the first time. People do this all the time. There are all kinds of classes that attempt to look at the Bible and how it's affected our culture, how it's established our Western civilization of today, the idea of the golden rule, the idea of critical thought, right? Those ideas are found in the Bible. And yeah, if you're going to have, listen, and again, I mean, I just, it's Wendell Griffin. It is who he is. But man, it just drives me nuts. The Establishment Clause has our founding fathers if Judge Wendell Griffin is right and the Establishment Clause means what he says it means, then the founding fathers were giant hypocrites. Thomas Jefferson held church services inside the Capitol building. Not to mention, inside the Constitution itself, they omit Sundays as a day that counts against the president when he's considering whether or not to sign or veto legislation. Why do Sundays not count in the total number of days that when something becomes law against the president of the United States during his deliberations? Why are Sundays omitted? Sundays are specific to Christianity. So the founding fathers inside the Constitution, when they're setting up how we pass laws, said, you know what, Sundays aren't going to count because that's a day of rest. That's a day of worship. So the president doesn't need to count against the executive branch. Well, so clearly the founding fathers didn't interpret the Establishment Clause the way Judge Wendell Griffin interprets the Establishment Clause, or the Supreme Court interprets the Establishment Clause. No. Our founding documents have been reinterpreted. They've been reworked. And it's a lie. It's not the truth about what the original intent was. It's something that's been concocted based on the idea that we can somehow perfect man because man evolves and changes in his nature. And we don't. They like to think that we do, but we don't. We're going to take a break, going to reset here. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. The bill passed, by the way. Thank goodness. They didn't listen to Judge Wendell Griffin. Back in a moment.
For them. He was a drill instructor for them, and a few years before he retired, according to what he said in the deposition, one of his duties was to be over in the Capitol during the legislative sessions providing security. Exactly what those three troopers were doing over there.
Okay.
So he knew the system, he knew the troopers, he knew the Capitol Police, which is probably why he thought he could get away with it, and it's probably why when the on-duty trooper heard it from this retired, trusted, known trooper, he didn't double-check it. He didn't verify it. This is a trusted fellow retired trooper. He's not going to lie to him and give him something totally fabricated. So it got reported right up the chain.
It's really strange, and all of this originates from Stephanie Flowers, Senator Stephanie Flowers, who became, I guess somehow she felt threatened by a cordial professional email that you wrote her, much like she,
Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yesterday, the governor signed into law the internet sales tax. That's right. So I saw this tweet here. Well, I guess I retweeted it. Let me see here. It was a tweet from Maureen Glasovic from KATV. She's a reporter at KATV. And she tweets, this was back at yesterday. What time did they sign this thing? This was around 2:13 yesterday. Governor Hutchinson will sign a package of tax reform laws, SB 561, Arkansas Tax Reform Act 2019, the Homestead Property Tax Credit Bill, and the Corporate Tax Reform Bill. And, I just thought, Maureen, just kind of thought to myself, I mean, did you give him your phone and let him write the tweet for you? So I couldn't help it. I retweeted that and just was like, an internet sales tax, right? Because how you gonna report the news and you just write what they tell you to write? The corporate tax reform bill? No, it's the internet sales bill. They put the corporate tax reform in there so they could get conservatives or people kind of on the fence to give them a reason to vote for a tax increase. I mean, this was and I haven't heard anyone in the media. This was a phony, the Department of Finance and Administration, they put forth a phony, false financial impact statement. It was for another piece of legislation that was drastically different than what we ended up with, and they just used the same numbers, even though the language that was different, the revenue projections, the revenue generation is going to be vastly different. It's just really frustrating. Now, Michael Wickline, he did better. His headline is, Hutchinson signs internet sales tax corporate rate cut. Now, that's at least what the bill does, right? Eventually, the internet sales tax goes into effect in July. So get ready, folks. They're going to take that money from you as fast as they can, right? It goes into effect immediately. The corporate tax reform, we'll get to it at some point. That's the way these things work. Corporate tax reform. Well, here's the thing, and I have to make this point. It's a tax increase on everybody who buys on the internet, right? Which is all of us. But you don't have very few people own C corporations. We're not talking about S corporations. We're talking about C corporations. So the giant companies. So they can talk all day long about how that's great. But it's a tax increase on all of us and a tax cut on very few. I mean, I just think of Stephanie Flowers in this video where she's threatening Senator Bob Ballinger, saying that if you pass the stand your ground law, maybe we'll use it when you come down to Pine Bluff, and I might feel threatened just because, essentially insinuating because he's white and would be carrying a gun on his hip or something. I mean, it was very irrational moment for her, and it seems to me, again, this email that you wrote her, I don't know, I guess I'm noticing a pattern here, Ed.
Yeah, a lot of people saw one of her outbursts during that long committee hearing that involved Senator Garner. But if you watch the whole meeting, which was, I don't know, either just short or just over an hour, she actually had three outbursts where she screamed and cussed, which the media called emotional and passionate, instead of unprofessional, vulgar, and threatening, which is actually what it was. And I've had a lot of people say to me, okay, you told me the story. I thought it was kind of out there. Maybe Edna, you were exaggerating. But now that I've seen how she acts, not in private, but in public, on video, now I understand. Yeah, it all happened 2 days after she got a very polite email from me saying, as your constituent, at your convenience, could I please meet with you? Which, I have the constitutional right, as everybody does, to politely interact with their government officials. And so this was not only a slanderous attack on me and my character, but it was an attempt, a political attempt to illegally use law enforcement to try to intimidate me to not communicate with my elected official and not go into the Capitol. Can you imagine what would have happened? Now, I've been up to the Capitol several times. I've been on radio programs. I've been requested to testify at a couple of committee hearings. What if, just by chance, I had wandered into the Capitol on the afternoon of February 23rd, 2017, when three troopers were walking around with my photo and a lie that this guy was armed and dangerous, had just threatened a senator this morning, had gotten kicked out, and might try to come back in here? What would have happened if the troopers would have seen me in the Capitol at that moment holding my photo?
Yeah. I mean, that would have been terrible. I mean, you would have been framed. I mean, you were already framed, essentially.
Yeah. But the false allegation, which probably involves somewhere between 1 and 3 or 4 people, is bad. But the cover-up that has followed that over the last 2 years. Here's the state police's official position. 3 trained state troopers in the Capitol got approached by a sergeant at arms. Now, there's 10 Senate sergeant at arms that were gold coats and name tags. And all of their photos are up on the wall with their names on them, right there by the Senate. So 3 troopers got approached by a Senate sergeant at arms who gave them this false report, which they reported this, so they know this happened. And now they're saying, these troopers just can't come up with who did it. Even though there's only 10, they wear gold coats, they wear name tags, and their photos are up. And even though
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Sorry about the little delay there. I got to tell you, William Barr, okay? William Barr was in front of Congress yesterday. He was supposed to be talking about budgetary matters, but that didn't really seem to happen. More people just wanted to talk about Robert Mueller. I thought that was pretty funny, especially when did you see where he said that he's investigating the investigators leading up to the FISA and the FISA abuse and everything that we know about now that's pretty much out there. I can't imagine the look on William Barr's face when he, first got to the job and started analyzing everything that went on before he got there. I mean, it's just incredible. He's saying that the 4-page summary is the bottom line, and Mueller and his team decided they didn't want to see it. They trusted William Barr to summarize what the report said, saying the report's going to be out. It's going to say exactly what the letter says. So all of this stuff, the cover-up, it's now a William Barr cover-up if you're a leftist. They think somehow that he's covering up for the president, and now they're going to go after his tax returns, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. But, hey, I got news for you. We have right now an exclusive on the phone. I want to introduce you to an author. He's the author of the Mueller report, the complete and final findings against President Donald J. Trump. His name is Kevin Pryslak. Kevin, welcome, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, sir. So the author of the Mueller report, this book, what can you tell us? What led up to you writing this particular piece of literature?
Well, I was completely fascinated by the whole endeavor of what was going on in reference to the Russia investigation and the Mueller report. So I did long, extensive months worth of research, and I was able to actually get my hands on the report, and therefore I was able to condense it to 262 pages. I left out some pages simply because it had top secret government information, and unlike Adam Schiff, I believed it was my duty as an American to keep that private.
I like it. So we've been going over that. Now, first of all, people can get your book, The Mueller Report, The Complete and Final Findings Against President Donald J. Trump. The book is what? How many words is it? 1,064. Is that right?
Yes, approximately. Well, definitely 1,064 words, but they're very well thought out words. It's not just words on a page. It took a long time to come up with those words.
A long time. How many blank pages are in this book?
Approximately 245.
So the Mueller report, the complete and final findings against President Donald J. Trump, there's 200 plus pages that are just blank, huh?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, after doing exhaustive research, we discovered that there was just nothing there. So our findings were no obstruction, no collusion, and fake news.
I really appreciate, Kevin, the humor behind this and why you decided to do this. I mean, and I think this book, let me ask you this, is this book, just kind of out of the frustration that I think a lot of Americans have felt over the last 2 years? It seems like instead of just accepting the will of the American people, we have, bad actors who just wanted to try to nullify the 2016 election results.
Yeah, no, it was out of frustration, and to make matters worse, you try and put out a humor book, which is, typically what I do, and Amazon didn't find it too funny, and they suppressed my account. So the only place you could actually get this book is BNN.com, so BN.com is the only place that you could actually get the Mueller report.
Wow, really? So Amazon won't even allow you to put it. That's incredible. Even though it's satire, that's ridiculous.
Yes, I let it be known that it was satire. It was mostly blank pages. It was a humor book, and that wasn't good enough for them. So they suppressed my account. They won't sell my book, and so it's time to make BN.com great again.
So I'm not able to actually hear the website that you're saying. So can you spell that out for us?
BN.com, like Barnes and Noble.
Okay, yeah, BN.com. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I apologize.
No problem. No, so B is in the boy and N is in Noble. BN.com. Yeah. So that's where you can get this. So go search for it there. Don't go to your normal Amazon because you're not going to find it. We're talking with Kevin Pryslak. He's the author of the Mueller report, the complete and final findings against President Donald J. Trump. Of course, most of the book has blank pages, but but you need to check it out anyway because
all your liberal friends will love it.
Yeah. Put it on the coffee table. It's like if there's ever a coffee table book that is like, a troll trap, like you're literally trolling potential guests in your house. This would be good, right?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe you could get a liberal to laugh.
Oh, man. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Let me ask you this, Kevin. You have a lot of liberal friends?
Oh, tons.
So
my wife is a liberal.
Okay. Well, so what does she think about all this? Is she seeing the light at all, or is she still, buying the CNN propaganda?
Well, she now is an avid Fox News watcher. She was a Rachel Maddow watcher, and she has decided, since she believes that Rachel Maddow has committed a fraud against this country, that it's time for her to see the other side, and now she's immersed herself in the FISA abuse and the abuse of power by the government of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. I think there's a lot of people like that. A lot of people who maybe, consider themselves left of center, but when they realize they've been misled and outright deceived intentionally, a lot of people are coming around. And I've heard that for a while. And, then you got that report out from the Grand Rapids, Michigan rally where President Trump was. And now it's just a report, but according to the Trump campaign, they said they were checking people's phone numbers at the door, and that 34% of the people at that Grand Rapids, Michigan rally were Democrats. I mean, if that's true, that's huge news.
Yeah, they have one of the best data teams around. That's what won them the last election, was the ability to be able to not only get data but use it. Something that the Hillary campaign was unable to do. Especially, you would think that the Hillary Clinton campaign would be very good with data, except we now know that every form of data they had actually got breached. So I believe that number that was given probably by Brian Pascali, if that's how you pronounce his name, yeah. I think that a lot more people are pro-Trump than you think, and a lot more people are more embarrassed to tell people that they're pro-Trump than you think, probably times 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see Trump's definitely going to win Michigan. I think he's going to, clean house. I also think that William Barr is going to clean house. So I think you might see a couple people sharing a jail cell. Michael Cohen, obviously, is going to jail. I have a strong suspicion that Brennan, Comey, Clapper, and McCabe might be joining him, but we shall see.
Yeah, I was talking. Matter of fact, I mean, that's not the last. You're not the first person to tell me that. We were talking with Arkansas Congressman Rick Crawford, who I don't know if he said they're going to jail, but he definitely listed them and went over the DOJ bad actors on the program on Friday. And he's on the House Intelligence Committee with Devin Nunes, and of course now, unfortunately, the Adam Schiff. But I mean, if you start going through the list, you mentioned Comey, you mentioned Brennan, you mentioned Clapper, and then you McCabe. I actually think that if I had to pick which one was more likely to go away or to be perp walked, honestly, I'm going with Brennan, just because of his CNN presence and everything else. He was the most vocal, calling the president a traitor, and the fact that it was Brennan calling him a traitor, and that's projection and deflection. He's just projecting the very thing that he's probably guilty of. I got a feeling that it might be Brennan first, but that's just my opinion.
I think it's I actually think it's Clapper. I think Brennan's MSNBC. I think Clapper's the one that leaked to CNN. I think he's a CNN contributor. I think he's the one that leaked that meeting with Trump and Comey at Trump Tower to CNN. I think they know who these leakers are, and I think that they're gonna. You know who else I think they might have on leaking? I'm not 100% sure, but I think they might have Adam Schiff on leaking.
Interesting.
Somebody leaked. So while Don Jr. was giving testimony behind closed doors, CNN was getting regular updates, and they say that Schiff was constantly leaving the room while Don Jr. was testifying. That's not a conspiracy theory. Everybody knows that. That's why they call him Shifty Schiff.
Mm-hmm.
Is because people think that he's a leaker. So we'll see. But I think the first one's going to be Clapper. I think Comey. I read some reports last night that Comey's memos actually had like top level classified information in it, and that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, Comey seems to be the most nervous with his cryptic tweets of him walking in redwood forests, having some guy take pictures of him, and he's just like so many questions. He's very interesting, and a lot of people, myself included, a long time ago, I thought James Comey was a good guy. You give him the benefit of the doubt. That is clearly not the case now. James Comey's in it for James Comey. I think everybody knows that now, and he's not a Boy Scout, and I think he's the opposite of a Boy Scout, And
so the next, yeah,
go ahead.
So the next time you have somebody on from Congress, I'd like to know this answer. So a lot of people don't know this, but congressmen aren't allowed to write. Senators could write books, but congressmen are not allowed to profit from an advance on books. But they can receive royalties on a real advance of books. However, those books have to go through an enormous amount of scrutiny. What I want to know is how Andrew McCabe and James Comey's book got through a legal read. I would like to know who at the Department of Justice read that book and approved those books for publication. Andrew McCabe, I'll give you a perfect example, right? It's a little inside knowledge in the publishing world that a lot of people don't know about. But the way around a lot of these loopholes is Andrew McCabe, for example, right? I don't think he discussed the 25th Amendment in his book, but he did discuss it on 60 Minutes. And once that 60 Minutes piece aired, and people saw that, Rod Rosenstein had talked about the 25th Amendment.
Yeah.
As soon as somebody at the Department of Justice saw that, somebody contacted Andrew McCabe or Andrew McCabe's publisher, and see how quickly Andrew McCabe came back and said they misinterpreted what I said. It's because he wasn't allowed to say it. What he did to get around the text in his book, that it wasn't in there, was he went on television and said it. That's how they get around the classified information. I want you to think about this, right? He was talking about the Gang of Eight information. Like, he was talking about conversations he had with the Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight is the most highly classified, people in all of government. So any conversations you have with the Gang of Eight have to stay with the Gang of Eight. So he was talking about conversations he had with everyone in the Gang of Eight.
Wow.
On television, right? But the Gang of Eight weren't even allowed to confirm the fact that he told them that because it's highly classified information. How does Andrew McCabe get away with that?
Yeah, and continue, like you said, continue to profit off of the book as well. That's extremely valuable information. That's fascinating. We're talking.
That's what they do.
We're talking with Kevin Preislack. Okay, he's an author, and the book is a satirical book called The Mueller Report, The Complete and Final Findings Against President Donald Trump. You can't find it on Amazon because Amazon doesn't like his book. So you have to go to Barnes & Noble to get it. Go to bn.com to search for this book. Again, his name is Kevin Preislack. You can spell that Pryslak. And Kevin, it's been a great conversation, sir. I wish you the best, and I thank you so much for your thoughts this morning.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too. Kevin Preislack, everybody. We're going to take a break. We're going to reset, and we're going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
I've got a recorded phone call where one of those three troopers tells me who did it. And I've got a state police memo by a captain who says that corporal told him who did it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask them right now, of course, they probably wouldn't answer you, but they would say, as the director of the state police, Colonel Bill Bryant, wrote me in a letter, we have no way of knowing because my troopers do not know anybody over there in the Senate Sergeant at Arms staff, even though we know that's absolutely false. It's again, the Senate and then the Capitol Police. Captain Bryce of the Capitol Police told me in a recorded meeting I had with Dan Cornwell, and he was in it. He said there's no possible way the Capitol Police would have given my ACIC photo to a Senate Sergeant of Arms because he knew that was a crime. You can't give a non-law enforcement officer ACIC product. But in his deposition, Alvernon Rogers, the Sergeant of Arms who did it, under oath, said that Captain Bryce of the Capitol Police gave him my ACIC photo. So you can always understand one or two bad apples, but instead of...
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
If you're just joining us, today at 10 o'clock, the House will convene. Today at 10 o'clock, the Senate will convene here in Little Rock, and it should be the last legislating that they do. They will recess, take a break, come back, and officially end in a couple of weeks. The House today is scheduled to hear the Sanctuary Cities bill that was run again one last time out of committee and passed with 14 votes yesterday. That's thanks to you being engaged, calling and texting your legislators. And really, a lot of people were upset. A lot of people were downright angry that the bill failed 2 days ago. But, hey, guess what? The House came through. State Representative Carol Dalby, she was there, and we'll get to her statement here in a minute. She says that she left. She says that she left 2 days ago because she had legitimate business and she wasn't able to get back in time. And there were others that were there. This was a big deal, and we need to thank these legislators for doing what the people want and standing up for the rule of law. There was some testimony for or against. This was what I think probably the best for statement was Ken Yang. Ken Yang, a friend of the program, and he spoke for this bill because his parents are immigrants and immigrated to this country the legal way. Listen to Mr. Ken Yang.
I'm here just representing myself, and I like to thank my parents who are also immigrants. There's nothing racist about supporting this bill and supporting legal immigration. I'm glad we live in the greatest country in the world. When my father fled communist China, there was no border for him to flee to, no sanctuary city for him to flee to. And so when they immigrated here in 1982, they did it legally. They did it like the over 4 million people that are standing in line for a green card right now. There are no sanctuary cities for them to go to because they understand that this country is a country of law, a country bound by the United States Constitution. And they did it correctly and right. And they worked hard. And they became American citizens in 2001. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that they remembered family, that they wouldn't use their children as pawns to come here and do that. And so when we talk about sanctuary cities and we talk about banning sanctuary cities, we're talking about making it fair for everyone that want to come here legally. And so I'll end with this because I don't have time to share my parents' story or my story, but it's not too much to ask to support this bill and to not cheapen the hard work of legal immigrants like my parents. Thank you.
Okay.
Again, that's Ken Yang doing an excellent job there. How are you going to argue with that? How are you going to argue with that, leftists that are putting this phony idea out there, this bill somehow going to institute racial profiling? How are you going to argue with that? Yeah, Ken Yang doing a great job there. Then Carol Dalby. When it came time for discussion, we played this once already, but I just want to, for the record, this is what Carol Dalby has to say. Really glad she voted for this bill. I'm really glad the Speaker of the House, Matthew Shepard, voted for this bill. Glad that State Representative Brant Smith and Senator Gary Stubblefield presented this bill. Thankful for State Representative Marcus Richmond for supporting this bill, and all of the rest of them who did as well. Carol Brown, Nelda Speaks, and others. Because this is a big deal. Chairman Lanny Fight. This is what the people want. It's common sense. It's not even controversial. It's just saying, hey, we don't want to give our state tax dollars to cities if they institute sanctuary city policies. But here's State Representative Carol Dalby in the discussion yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had made it clear I felt like yesterday that I was for this bill. I had some questions about some of the procedures, and Representative Smith and I have visited about that, about trying to fix the procedures so that the bill will stand any court challenge, and that I was supportive of the bill, was supportive of it yesterday, though I have taken some personal hits today because I was called out of this meeting to take care of some other business that I was responsible for and didn't get back here in time. And I want the record to be very clear that I did not leave this meeting to avoid a vote yesterday, and Representative Smith understands that, and I think all my colleagues understand that. But I wanted that to be very clear that that's not the way I operate, and I wanted that on record. And I had every intention yesterday of voting for this bill, though I recognize there's some issues that we're going to work on and get it fixed as to the procedure part of it, and I have every intention of voting for it today. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, that's Carol Dalby,
and
she's setting the record straight for the record. That's she didn't get up and leave. Hey, listen, the people are left kind of wondering when that happens, because we have seen it before. We have caught it before on video where someone intentionally gets up and leaves to avoid a vote. And so a skeptical public, and by the way, that's a healthy American skepticism. Listen, they want their reps to vote yes or no because they're voting in their name. And yeah, things get hectic. And a lot of times people don't understand exactly how the process can work sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, it isn't out of, it certainly is not something out of far left field to suggest that a representative would get up and leave to avoid a vote, because it has happened many, 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 many times. But you know what? None of that really matters at this point. What matters is let's stay positive. The state house listened to the people, and the politicians would be the first to tell you that passing legislation can be kind of ugly. Making this, and that's the same way with the public. When the news comes out that's unpopular, that we couldn't pass, because 2 days ago the news was we can't even pass a anti-sanctuary cities bill in this state. It makes people very upset, and people are going to react. And guess what? They did. Some people did get offended. There was some misinformation. There was some, again, I said this yesterday and last hour as well. State Representative Sarah Kapp just happened to be in the room. She's not on the committee, and she got blamed for leaving. Well, that's unfortunate. That is very unfortunate. And I wanted to set the record straight about that. But here's the bottom line is, it all worked together, right? The outrage of the public, whether there was truths or half-truths, but it ended up getting those people back in that room one way or the other, and they voted overwhelmingly for the rule of law and for our federal immigration laws and for our tax dollars to not go to cities or municipalities who reject federal immigration law and refuse to cooperate with federal authorities when it comes to illegal immigration. We should applaud them. And again, it's now going to the House floor. I expect it to pass, unless, of course, the governor's still uncomfortable with it, which the paper this morning says they're just going to wait and see what the House does. But the House this morning at 10 a.m. will meet, and at some point today, I expect them to hear this bill. Folks, thanks so much for being with us. The 92nd General Assembly is about to wrap up, or at least go into the first phase of wrapping up. I'll be back in our home studios tomorrow for the broadcast if everything goes okay. Arkansas, thanks for listening. Be safe.